Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm just running down my quick first impressions of Vantage. I just released a full playthrough of Vantage. It's actually playing in the background right now. Go check that video out if you haven't, because in this video I'm going to assume that you've seen that one or you at least know how Vantage plays. I also want to make it clear that I received an early review copy for this game, and so if you think that influences my opinion at all, keep that in mind. I really want to emphasize this is a first impressions video because I've only played this game twice. My first play was on camera, that was my first playthrough. I also filmed my second playthrough, and I'm going to edit that and eventually put it on the channel. After that second playthrough, I just really wanted to record my thoughts because I have so many of them. If you're just interested in my overall impressions, I love this game. I've had so much fun with it so far, I cannot wait to play more. It's just my kind of thing. Now, that doesn't mean that I am saying it's your kind of thing, or that I'm even recommending it for you. This is going to be for some people and not for others. Vantage really is a pure exploration game. It takes all the exciting and interesting things that you get with exploration gameplay, and then it just streamlines everything else around it. The entire focus is on exploration and discovery, a huge open world to explore with different adventures to kind of stumble into. And what makes it all so brilliant is just how easy it is to get into it. This is a really simple game. It's one that you can just set up in literally a minute. You do a random setup where you're getting one of 21 different possible missions. There's 6 different characters, and then you can wind up starting in one of 126 different locations on the map. And where you start makes a big difference in what kind of adventure you're going to have. In my second game, I randomized everything. I had a different character, a different mission. In fact, I had a mission that would have worked really well for my first playthrough, which was kind of funny. And then I had a completely new starting location. And for the entirety of my second play, which was incredibly epic, I did a ton of stuff. It was so completely different from the first play, partially because I had learned so much from that first play. That was a learning game. And I never once went to the same location, saw the same things that I did from the first one. It was a completely different experience. I don't want to give too much away from that playthrough because I am going to put it on the channel, and I'm excited for you guys to see that one. But Vantage focuses on really what is the most important thing, and they nail it out of the park. They make exploration fun by rewarding you for exploring, by giving you interesting things at every step to discover. You want to keep going because you're rewarded every time that you do with another cool thing, something that you weren't expecting. It really gives me that same feeling that I get from open world video games. I don't know, Fallout or Skyrim or something. Because in those games, I just ignore the main mission and I just head off to the hills. I see something interesting in the distance and I head over there and just see what I can discover. And inevitably in those games, you discover something interesting. You meet interesting people, or you encounter strange beasts, and you have adventures, and you have these side quests, and you get involved in things. And that's what happens here. This is an open world that's just filled to the gills with stuff. And the decisions that you make really impact what kind of story you're going to tell. And that's the next thing that Vantage nails. The fact that when you get to a location, you have 6 actions to choose from. And more than likely, you're only going to be able to take one action on that location, maybe 2. You simply can't do everything. And that's so important in a game like this. That's what a lot of these video games get wrong, because in a lot of those, you can do everything. Here, you're not necessarily making these great strategic choices, but rather you're making painful decisions between multiple actions that you want to take, knowing you're probably only going to get to take one of those. And it means you're missing something. You're missing a lot of other things. And in a different game, when you go to that location, you can take a different action and have a different experience. And that's a good segue into the next thing that Vantage nails, which is this is not a campaign game. Thank God, this is not a campaign game. How many times have I said it? Look, there's tons of great campaign games. I love a lot of campaign games, but campaigns are just hard. It's hard for me to continue on with one game for as long as it takes to finish a full campaign. It's hard to come back to a campaign game in the middle after you've left it for a while and you've sort of forgotten what has happened. Campaign games are just such a commitment. Vantage is one-off scenarios. You play a session, you end that session, and then everything resets. And you play a completely new session from the beginning. You don't really have scenarios as such, but the randomized setup creates a new scenario. That works so well. I mean, I've just been screaming this from the rooftops forever. Why is Robinson Crusoe one of the greatest games ever made? The greatest game ever made. It's because it's scenario-based. Because I can jump into any scenario and play a session, and it's a complete thing. I get a full story. The reason Primal was so great is because they included one-off scenarios in addition to the campaign. You didn't have to play the campaign. You could play those one-off scenarios, which were great. That made that game. The problem with a lot of exploration games is they are campaign-based, and it's a full commitment. And I love a lot of those. We've had a ton of great ones, from Earthborn Rangers to Iridia. Those are two that I've had on my channel. What I love here is I can just pull this box off at any time now in the future. I can set it up in a minute, and I can have an amazing adventure in 2 to 3 hours, and then put it away. The last thing I really want to talk about is the dice rolling mechanism, the rolling to resolve mechanism, because I think it's really smartly done. I'm a big fan of the fact that when I take an action, I'm going to succeed. I'm not rolling to see whether I succeed or fail. No, I'm going to succeed. I'm just rolling to see how much damage is going to be done. What are the consequences of doing that action? That's a really satisfying system. I don't know enough about role-playing games, or TTRPGs or anything. But one of the off-putting things about something like D&D is just how many times you're rolling and then failing. And I don't know if there's a role-playing game that has something more like this, where, you're going to succeed at the action, but your rolls are kind of determining what the consequences will be. I'd love to know if there's a role-playing game like that. But yeah, that just works so much better here. The trick to it is that you're kind of operating blindly. You don't exactly know what that one-word action is actually going to do. And that's one of the things about replaying this game. You start to learn a little bit more about that. You start to get a better feel for what certain things are going to do. That just comes with experience. But when you take an action, you don't know, one, what the cost is going to be. So you don't know how difficult that thing is going to be. And that's one of the things you need to try to anticipate. And it's something that you can anticipate. You can look at the image, you can guess how difficult things are going to be. And it sort of works. I mean, it sort of makes sense. If you pay close enough attention, you can kind of guess it. And occasionally you will be surprised. But I sort of like that. I like that surprise. I think that's fun. And then, of course, you resolve the dice rolling, and then you don't exactly know what's going to happen. There's sort of these two layers of intrigue when you take an action. And I like that. I like the not knowing. It's very important in a game like this, because this isn't a game about being strategic. This isn't a Euro game. And that's going to be the thing that throws some people off, I'm sure. You don't necessarily have a ton of control over exactly what's going to happen, or what story you're going to tell, or what things you're going to get, or how your character is going to grow. This is more of a game where you have to kind of go with the flow, and things are going to happen. You're going to get good at certain actions, and that means you are probably going to want to take those actions more often, which makes sense. If you're skilled at something, then that's going to be what you use to solve your problems, right? If you find an axe and now suddenly you're skilled in doing more of the attacky actions, well, you're going to start solving more of your problems with that axe. That's just natural, and that's how this game works. You can't really go in with a preconceived notion of who you're going to be or what you're going to do. And really, that's what makes the missions kind of interesting to me. I honestly think the best way to play this is to not be too hung up on what your main mission is. Not to completely ignore it either, but not to let it dictate everything that you do. Because you don't always have a ton of control over, exactly how, things are going to shape up, where you're going to go, what you're going to find. And you might get kind of detoured off doing things that, really aren't supporting your mission. And that's fine. Like, that's cool. I don't think you should really think of that mission as being like the end-all be-all, win the game or lose the game based on how you did on that mission. I think it is much more important to think of it as like, a main mission in one of these open world video games where, yeah, maybe I'll get to that if I happen upon it, if the circumstances are right, but it might be just as fun to go off and do this side mission. That's at least how I've approached it, and that's been, I think, the most fun way of doing it. Also, time will tell what the game feels like and what it becomes once you get to know the planet better. Like once you start remembering where things are, or, you start seeing things again. Once you start knowing how those destinies work or how the missions work, the only thing you take from game to game is that knowledge of the world. How does that change everything? I don't know, right? I've only played it twice, so that's something that time will tell. There are so many cards and so much content here. And like I said before, you go to a place and you miss a lot. You're doing one thing there and moving on. So I think there's a ton of replayability. I think it will take so many games before it starts getting stale or you start seeing the same things over and over again. I also just want to quickly note that this is a solo game to me. I know there's going to be tons of people that are playing it multiplayer. I've only played it solo, and I really don't have any desire to play this as anything else. This is a solo game that has multiplayer rules affixed to it, and in my opinion, not in a very satisfying way, just from reading the rules. If I have multiple people over, we're going to play something else. We're going to be playing a true multiplayer game. Now, I've also felt this way about Frostpunk and Mage Knight and a lot of games. Heck, I feel that way about Voidfall. I mean, honestly, if I was going to play it like with my wife or like my kids or something, I might just play one character and just have us discuss what we wanted to do with that one character. That almost seems like that would be more fun than the way the multiplayer works. But I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that. The other thing to maybe just mention is this idea of having to go into the books and read the passages and, how fiddly is that? How clumsy is that? Shouldn't there just be an app that you can use? Sure, I mean, an app would be useful, but I'm the kind of person that doesn't mind going through the books. I don't find it fiddly. You just pull out the booklet from the stack that matches the action that you're taking. You go to the number. Just read the first part, don't read the whole thing, then come back to it. An app would certainly, make that process a little bit more smooth. And so, maybe that's something that will happen in the future. But yeah, personally, I think it works great. I just love this game. I can't wait to explore it more. And I think this is going to hit the table so often. Okay, well there, I have rambled on for far too long. That's all for me. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.